You're listening to Teracota Chronicles, where broken pieces find their way back to wholeness.
I'd like to just take a moment to give clarity for where we're headed in the channel. A lot of what I'm sharing is stories from my life, right? The channel is a living journal. And so I've been giving you the foundation of where I come from in terms of my growth as a child to some of today. So these next few episodes are going to bring us into present day. And it's true, I'm not giving you all of the story details or backgrounds. And the reason why is because it's a memoir. There is a memoir that is actively being written, and I am giving you the cliff notes. What I am attempting to do is lay the foundation because I want you to understand me, where I'm coming from, why I'm saying the things I'm saying. You know, I'd been a Christian walking in the devout Christian way for about 36 years of my life. Okay. So I'd gone through spiritual gift testing, studied in the School of Ministry, and became a licensed minister serving in church a long, long time. So when I start talking about things that are of spirit, meaning praying in tongues or listening to the Holy Spirit, or as I know it now to be your intuition, prophetic utterances, gift of discernment, being a seer and having visions. These things are largely metaphysical, right? They're metaphysical. But when you're in the church world, you're not allowed to see it that way. You're to see the metaphysical world as evil, and your Christian world, where you are largely doing the same things as they do in the metaphysical world, as holy and sanctified. And I'm here to say that they're not different. They're not different. And as we go on this journey, you will be able to learn that. And now, for me, a lot of my gifts began as a child, and we, as Christians, you're taught to believe that they don't happen until you accept Christ, and that's not true. What does happen when you accept Christ is that you start to desire and come into a Christ consciousness. This is so important to your soul's evolution. But where it goes off track is when you are left leaning on a leader or pastor or someone telling you what is right and what is wrong, even going so far as to manipulate, using their platform to manipulate the people. And that's another level of, it's a touchy subject. I'll touch on it just a little bit because I don't want any backlash saying that I'm telling people they shouldn't have a pastor or shouldn't listen to a pastor. It's not what I'm saying. Having a Christ consciousness is to be self-guided while living from a state of unconditional love, compassion, wisdom, and your spiritual alignment. Being able to walk in that, understanding you have that within you to bring it out, and you don't actually need to be obligated to a ministry or a service. Now, it has its place. It does. I'm not going to knock that, because if I didn't have that Christian experience growing up in my youth, I tell you, I don't know where I would be today. But my gifts, these things that are in me, were always in me. They didn't just develop or start when I said yes to Christianity and serving in the church. They were already there. The difference is how they were allowed to be developed. So there are levels of my giftings that I squashed and pushed to the back burner because of where I was in the church. You weren't allowed. These things aren't of God, is what I used to believe. Now I don't believe that. Now I have a different understanding. And when I was in the king's chamber, I was given an assignment to come forward and to tell the truth. And in many ways, expose myself because I am so stable. You wouldn't know that I have all of these giftings working in me. Real talk. I mean, when you meet people who have spiritual gifts or are considered in some ways a shaman or psychic, or they identify as being spiritually aware or spiritually awakened, there's often a cultural image attached to it. And it looks like someone who is detached from everyday life, overly abstract, wandering, or disconnected from reality. But that's not true. For me, spirituality became the opposite. It asked me to become more grounded, more accountable, more compassionate, and more honest with myself. And it's been a very hard journey of just looking in the mirror. That's not always easy. So there are so many people walking amongst you with, holding major roles in their employment and doing things, but have clear understanding of themselves and the spiritual gifts that they possess. So if you've found my channel, you may be falling in that category. Someone who has started experiencing things differently on a spiritual level. Perhaps maybe you too were in the church, serving, living, professing, and sold out for God in that way, but discovering that there was something very empty still when it wasn't supposed to be. That's not what you were told it would be, right? You're there, you're serving, you're giving, you're loving, and yet you're still coming up short. You're still living from lack. You're still, running around the church and you're tithing and you're doing all that you're supposed and told to do. And yet you cannot see the total prosperity. If you're with this channel, you want to know the one true God. You want to understand what this life is about, what my purpose is about. And I certainly hope you can find some answers here. You may not find all of them, but I do believe I've been given an assignment to help somebody who was in my shoes, just kind of get through it a little faster and maybe go through it with some support. So, that being said, right now we're discussing how I got to being free to bring forward these gifts. That's what this is leading us to. And I have to give you the marriages because this is how it started. Breaking free from that mold, that religious mold from the first marriage to now I'm in the in between, walking into a second karma / dharma type of marriage. And I say dharma because even though in the, spoiler alert, it didn't work out, it was still needed. It was still a necessary part of my life. And some things we go through are meant to be there on purpose to teach us a lesson. They may be a wrong pattern to choose, but they are still a lesson and a growth point to come out of. And that's what the second marriage was. And listen, it was so good. I can't wait to give you all the rest of this. So, I've gone on quite a bit here. And like I said, these next few episodes, we are going to get really, really into the dharma of the situation.
You've been listening to Teracota Chronicles. And if something in my story resonated with you, if it mirrored your life, your questions, or your own awakening, I hope it reminds you you are not alone. I'm not here to perform or present a polished version of myself. What I'm offering is honesty. And if you choose to stay with me, this story is still unfolding. I'll return with the next part. Be open, be well, and be at peace until we meet again.